This is the gold belt video for testing a web service. I'm going to actually run through all 4 languages in this video. We'll start with C# and we'll just go alphabetically. So C#, Java, JavaScript, and then Python. So looking at this, I've got the solution open here inside Visual Studio for the web service. What we need to do is we need to test our controller. So let me open up the controller real fast. Let's take a look. We'll notice the route is API / the controller name, which will be physician, and then / and then the name of the attribute. So search physician or rate physician. So that's basically what we need to do here. The search physician is a get, the rate physician is a post. So that's the idea. So let me start off. We'll create our test project as we typically do. And I'll do this one in MS test. I haven't done MS test in a little bit. I'll call it acceptance tests. We'll use the defaults, that's fine. All right, so now that I've got that up and running, I'm gonna start with the physician search. So we'll say physician search tests. And then let's go ahead and change this. So this will be physician search success. We'll just do a simple one. We can always come back and rename this later once we have something more meaningful. To set this up, and we have to do something similarly with the web application. So what we need to do is be able to make web requests to the project. So to do that, I need this program CS in the main web app to be public. So there's a couple of ways to do that. I can do it with a partial class, which is what I did in the web app. Here, I'll do it a different way, just so you can see another way to do it. What we're going to do is we'll turn this back into a full class, and then I'll make that class public. So we'll just convert to program.main style. So this is going to introduce the class back again. And we'll say public class program. All right, now that I've got that, I do need to add my dependencies. So we'll add a project reference from the test to the web app so that it can see the program CS file. And then in my test, we're going to need to create the web application factory. So we'll say using var web application factory equals new web application factory of program. Make sure we're using the right program. This one's not namespaced. And now I need to install the package. So again, if you know the package, you can do it through NuGet. I'm going to actually do it that way, just so you can see what that looks like. Again, I'm doing this a little differently than I did the web app. So I'm looking for ASP.NET Core MVC testing. So we'll right-click on the project, and I'll go down to Manage NuGet Packages. We'll say ASP.NET Core test. Not test host, MVC.testing. I believe this is the one we're looking for. Let me just double check that. MVC testing. Yep, that's exactly the one. So we'll do MVC testing. I'm going to hit the down arrow. That'll install it for the project. It's going to ask me, do I accept the terms? These are MIT licenses, which are good open source licenses. There are some open source licenses that require your code to be open source, so be careful about that. The MIT license does not require that, so it's a good license to use. All right, that's installed, and now I can simply add my using. So there's my web application factory. Now I need to create my client. So there is the web client, and then from here, I'm going to call in and actually do the get in this particular case. We'll say using var response equals client get async. This will be API / and I'll do it from the root, API / and then the name of the controller, so physician / and then we want search physician. Now we're also going to pass location and name, so let's go and pass those in. So we'll say location equals New York. Let's do Austin or Dallas, or let's do something without a space, so I don't have to worry about spaces. And name equals John, so we're looking for Dr. John in Dallas. Let's go ahead and we'll turn this back. I don't want to do this as async, so I'll just return it back as a sync. And now we'll simply do response ensure success. Now I should get a 500 code because we've got database connectivity problems and things. So that's the error that I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and run this and let's see if we've got our test success working. And we do get a 500, so let's make sure that it's actually calling the right thing. We'll just change this to nope. And I should get a 404. And I do, that's exactly right. So we'll go ahead and undo this. So this test is up and running. I'm now ready to test. Let's do a post real fast as well. So we'll go to the physician controller. We'll do rate physician. So I'll do that as a new test file. And I'll just copy and paste rate physician tests. Now, rate physician, we're going to call rate physician. No query string parameters. Actually, it does want, so rate physician / and the physician ID. So let's do the number 1. So there's our physician. And then the review, on the review, we're really just using the rating in the review text. So we need to set that up. So we'll change this to post. And then we're going to need to change this to return a JSON object or send a JSON object. I'll use the JSON content class built into .NET. We'll create an object, and this will be a new anonymous object. And again, we want rating and review text. So rating equals, let's give them a 3-star, and then review text equals testing. All right, so there is our code. Let's review it real fast. So post async, let's go and put these on 2 different lines so that we can read this a little easier. And then at the end, we'll get a way to get result. So we're going to post to our URL. We're going to create a JSON object, an anonymous object that takes the rating, the review text, and make sure we can post to it. Again, we want to make sure it's success, but it should get a 500. If it gets something else, we have a problem. So let's go ahead and run this now. And we do get our 500, and it is in my SQL exception access denied. So that's basically setting it up for the test. A little over 7 minutes, not bad for C#. Let's move on to Java now. So I'm going to close this down. We're going to open up the folder. So we'll go into the Java code, source, provider search, open with code. Yes, let's zoom in for you a little bit. All right, so in our web app, very similar, right? So the problem space is the same in all of these. We're doing physician search and a rate physician. So inside our source code under main Java controllers, here's our physician controller. So we've got a search physician for a get and a rate physician for a post. So very, very similar. So once again, I need to set up my test. I do have a warning. Okay, that's a deprecation warning. I'm going to ignore that for now. So in our physician controller test, note this class was auto-generated when I created everything. So we can start by just uncommenting this and seeing if we can create it. There's a lot we're going to need to change here. So in the Java world, we have to make sure we're using the right libraries for the right version of Spring Boot and the right version of JUnit. So let me just start by uncommenting everything. We'll see that things aren't working, and then we will fix it all. All right, so we do have some problems. We don't want to use the ordered test runner. That is not ideal. That's not what we're looking for. So what we want to do is get rid of these. We're not going to run these as ordered tests. You can certainly import that library back in if you wanted to run these as a test. We also don't need these Spring class rules, the methods, the watchers. We don't need any of that. We do need the mock MVC, but also at this point, we don't need the before class, the after class, any of that. So we'll get rid of that. So here's our test methods. Here's our fields. We're not going to do these as ordered tests, and I'm only going to do one test for now. So a lot that we're gutting out of this thing. So I'm just cleaning everything up to get rid of things we don't need. Greet Java, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's call this physician search success. And let's rename this class. Instead of physician controller, let's do physician search test. All right, that's looking better. There's our test method. This is all built in. We're not sure if this is going to work yet. Obviously, we do have a red here, so the test won't run at this point. I do need to fix this problem here. So the first thing that needs to happen is I need to change this run with. This is not going to work at all. This actually needs to be the Spring extension class. So we'll say Spring extension, pull that in. And now it's not happy because run with isn't compatible. This actually needs to be the extend with. This is upgrading from JUnit 4 to JUnit 5. So I'll pull that in. Now we've got a bunch of usings we don't need. We'll go and remove all of those. Now we're going to still run into a problem with JUnit 4. So this test attribute is in JUnit 4. You can tell by the namespace it's org.junit. JUnit 5 is in the Jupyter namespace, so org.junit.jupyter. So we're still going to run into problems. Let's go and see that. We'll run the test. And it's saying, hey, I can't invoke this. I've got another problem. No pointer for the mock MVC. None of that's working right. So there's a lot of things we have to make sure we're working. So the error is not giving us exactly what we need to do. So I'm going to get rid of these two statements here. You'll notice we are using Jupyter for extend with. Test now doesn't know what it is. So I can pull in from the org JUnit. That's what we had before. I actually want the Jupyter one. So let's pull that one in. And then assert, let's get rid of that. We're going to do these as static imports. So we'll do the static import from assertions. Assertions is the Jupyter version. Assert was the old JUnit version. So a lot of this you're just going to need to learn or do internet searches on. You don't have to necessarily know it all. These are things that you're going to have to figure out. You can certainly use Copilot to help you struggle through some of these. I'll do a static import here, and I'll change this to import star so we get all of those. All right, that's looking a little bit better. Now let's run the test again. All right, so we get a failure, and we have a 404, so that's progress. It's actually able to make the request and get a 404. We're looking for something that's probably a 500 because it's going to try to connect to the database and not work, but 404 is progress from where we were. The problem is we're going to this Java URL, and that doesn't exist. So again, let's go back to the controller. We're looking for /API/physician/search physician. So let's change this URL now. And then also we're passing in location and name. So let's do those as well. So let it do that. So New York and name equals Smith. That's fine. I'll just let that get us back there. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this again. This is obviously not correct either. We don't want it to be hello Java. But again, we're just looking for a 500 to see if we can test the service method. We'll run it again. It's taking a little bit longer this time. All right, let's see what our error is. All right, so we're actually getting the error that we want to show that we are in the right place. So let me open this up in an editor so we can see everything. What it's saying is bad SQL grammar, select star from physician, where location. So this code, if I look down at the stack, this code is in my physician repository class. Physician, okay, it's not gonna, I was hoping it was gonna open it from here. It's not. So let's go to the physician repository class, and it's line 28. So line 28, it is complaining about this SQL syntax. So the actual error is not the syntax itself. The actual problem is the physician object doesn't exist. We have not created the physician table. So again, unfortunately in Java, you get a lot of these misdirections where the exception message isn't the exact problem, but we are getting into our code. We are executing the controller method. We got to the right place. And this is the error that we're expecting to see. Now we're ready to mock the database, which is a different video. So we're all set there. We could do the same thing on the post. Again, it's just going to change this to a requestbuilders.post, and then you're going to make the post, and then you should be off to the races there. So not a lot of change in terms of doing the post, but that's the idea there. Let's go and move on. We're going to head into the JavaScript world. So JavaScript source. Let's open this in code. Drag it over for you. Again, let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so again, as we typically do, we're going to start off with npm I. We'll install all the dependencies. Let's go ahead and create our test folder and our test file. And we do need to install our test framework. So there are a few different test frameworks out there. For this particular exercise, I'm actually going to install Jest. I'm going to use it a little bit different. I've normally been using Mocha with Chai, partly because it's really easy, but I want to do a different framework for you just so you can see some of the differences. So we're going to install Jest. So we'll say Jest, save dev. I also want, so I'm thinking ahead a little bit, I want to be able to test Express. So this is using, we'll go into app.js, you'll notice we're using Express. So quick internet search on how to do that. There's a couple of different frameworks, testing frameworks for testing out Express. Supertest is kind of the easiest one I've found. You could use a different one if you'd like, but I'm going to use Supertest. So I'm going to install both Jest and Supertest as dev dependencies. We'll go and get those running. Now Jest, the Jest runner, has a different issue there. When you run the tests, it will not know that it's using modules. And if you do some internet search, you'll understand that you have to do an interesting test script. So instead of using Jest normal, which can kind of work, but you have to use the common JavaScript syntax, which uses the require statement rather than the import statement. If you want to use the import statement, there is a different command we have to do. So it's node -- there it is, experimental -via modules, and then we call node modules jest bin jest.js. So this is the command that will let us run as modules. So there's a different error that you get. Once I get this up and running, I'll show you what that error looks like. From here, we'll simply do our describe, position search, and then test. Yeah, should pass is fine. Let's go and just close these out. And then from here, we need to import a couple of things. So first off, from the app, we're going to need to import the app object. So source app, we need app. So let's import that object. Import app from, and it figured it out for me. Excellent. We're also going to need import supertest. This is going to be request from supertest. All right, now that I've got these, the way to make the call in for supertest is going to be, we'll get our response. This will be, and this needs to be an async method. We will await request app, and it's helping me out. Get search physician, and again, let's go back in and make sure we understand. So our URL here is search physician. I didn't prefix it with API or physician or anything like that. We're again going to pass the location and the name. So let's go ahead and do that. Location equals, and the name. That looks great. That's basically all we need to do the get, and we will simply expect the response status to be 200. Now, once again, I should expect this to fail. I should get a 500 because it's trying to connect to the database. Let's see what we've got. So npm test. It's running test with our experimental modules. It's taking a little time. Perfect. And we do get, let's see. Oh, properties are not what we were expecting. Oh, that's because, let me make request, get the app. Should be status code to be 200. Status. Okay, let's try that again. AI, I think, led me astray. Nope, still not liking the response. So async await request app. All right, let's find out what we've got going on. So search physician. Let's go back to our app, search physician. That all looks correct. So it's saying, cannot read properties of undefined reading status code. So it's trying to read status code on response. So response is coming back null. So this await request is not coming back the way I want it. Oh, that's because supertest. Right. Silly Chad. So import request from supertest, not from express. Let's try this again. All right, taking a little longer. This is what I'd expect. It's probably doing a database timeout. Yep, so access denied for root at localhost. Excellent. So it's now making it to the post. It's not finding it. So again, let's just confirm. We'll change this to nope. We'll run the test again. We're going to fail, and it's a 404 not found. So that is now working as expected. So I did want to go back. I want to show you what happens if you don't have for Jest. This is specifically for Jest. I'll go back to package, and instead of running this node experimental, let's just run the normal Jest. And let me show you what that error looks like. Import request. So it's saying in the search test, import request cannot use import statement outside a module. Well, this is a module, and we know that because it says type module. So this is a Jest thing. In order to get past this error, if you see this error in Jest, this is where you have to run this node command to basically run Jest using experimental VM modules. So again, I run it again, and we're back to our database connectivity problem. So that's the idea there. To do the post, again, it would just be post, and then you would just add the object that you want to post out to. Basically the same thing we're doing there. All right, one more language. Let's head to Python. So we'll close this down. Head to Python, source, open with code. Try to drag this over. There we go. And once again, let's zoom in a little bit for you. So this is using pip file. So again, whatever you want to use for installing the dependencies, I'll just use pipenv. And then we'll install. Go and create our test folder. And then we'll do physician search test. All right, let's make sure we're using the right environment. Provider search, pipenv. There we go. All right, so in here, effectively what we need to do, this is, so again, we'll look at our code main. This is using Flask. So Flask has a test client built in, which is really, really nice. So all we really need to do is pull in the app object. So we pull that into our search. So we'll simply from, let's see, app.main, import app. There we go. And let's define, we'll say test search, position search success. And then we'll say client equals app test client. And actually it looks like it is auto dispose. So let's go and do the auto dispose response equals, I like double quotes instead of single quotes. So this is going to be search physician. Now let's go ahead and do the rest of that. We'll simply assert 200. All right, so there's the code set up. Not a lot going on. Let's go ahead and run our test real fast. We're using pytest in the test folder. And we do have, let's see, where's the error? We do have a problem, no module named pytest. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well, it would help if I install pytest. Not npm. pipenv install pytest as dev. So got to make sure to install pytest. Let's go ahead and rerun this now. All right, so we still get an error, and the error is module not found, data in, try and import, and this is from app. Okay, so in main data, we need app.data. Save that now. Let's go back to our tests, refresh them. Now we look good. Let's go ahead and run our test now. Taking a little time. I'm hoping this is a database connectivity problem. Should be about 15 seconds. Oh, maybe a little longer. Still running. There we go. All right, so our error is 500, and the 500 is an internal server error. It took 18 seconds, 15 of which is probably the database timeout. So this is exactly what I'd expect to see. So it is trying to connect. Let's again just confirm what happens if we do. It doesn't exist. I should get a 404, and I do. So that's, we are set up. We have now set up the test. We're ready to actually execute web service calls. We can change this to a post whenever we want to do a post, and again, just pass an object as JSON. For the rest of this, if there's other questions, I definitely recommend going to the internet. If you have concrete specific problems, you can't get Copilot to help, you can't get ChatGPT or Grok to help, shoot me over an IM, shoot me a message. I'm happy to help you figure some things out. This is very much a learning experience. Struggle is good, so definitely embrace the struggle. But that's basically how we set up tests for web service calls.